Welcome to the Assist Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Schwartz, and joining me today for a second appearance is a good friend, Devon Foster, fellow pre-med student. Devon, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, Zach?
Just trying to make it through this semester. This hurricane has been messed everything up. We lived. We survived.
We did.
We survived Hurricane Dorito. We're here.
I actually evacuated here, which eventually became into the path of the hurricane. And then I had to evacuate a second time.
Yeah, because you live in Jacksonville, right?
I do, right on.
So
on the
at
coast.
first they're like, okay, like West Palm, whatever, is getting hit first, or something like that, and they're like, actually, psych, it's going towards Jacksonville. And I'm thinking about like Devon sitting there in Jacksonville. I'm like, wait a minute. So where'd you evacuate to the second time?
I went more west towards kind of like just like an hour and a half inland or so.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the people that like from Orlando that were all. I'm going to Georgia, and then it's like, actually, Georgia and Carolina's going to get crushed. And it's like, oh, well, let's just turn around and go back. Like,
No, yeah. Because I left the morning of, and like right when I got home was when it changed paths and everything.
That's crazy. Yeah, because I was at my grandparents' for a while, for like 5 days or so, and nothing really happened there.
No,
like,
yeah.
Literally nothing. So my two hurricane experiences have been Irma and Dorian, in which barely anything's happened in the area I was. So
yeah,
which is crazy. But other than that, you're doing well.
Doing pretty well. Just trying to start off, get a routine in order with the new semester and all that.
Yeah, it's been a bit tough to establish a rhythm. So
yeah.
Are you still working on all your research, or is it you on pause right now?
For the time being, I just got 3 different things published, and then 1 is in submission, and it's hopefully going to get accepted soon.
So I know we've talked before, but just for other people, like what's the general, like if you could do a quick spiel of your research, what you try to do, because you do have a lot of publications and hundreds and hundreds of hours, which is really unique among just us because we're only juniors right now. So
just they all kind of vary, but it's kind of cool because there's like a general sense of overlap. I'll try and do like a really kind of quick spiel of it, but so one of them, I work with orthopedic surgery department and everything, and so an arthroplasty is a joint replacement. Yep. And so I would go in and I would watch a lot of total knee arthroplasties, so pretty much like a knee replacement. Okay. And so how it would work was, it was kind of 2 studies in one, where in the morning at like 6:30, 7 a.m., you would go in with the doctor, and then you would go and round on patients and everything. Mm-hmm. And then while you were doing that, a lot of them were either pre-op or post-operative patients. And so the doctor would ask them like what their pain is on a scale from 1 to 10. Is it adequately controlled and everything? And so for one of the studies, what we did was I would go in and I would write down that number, and then I would leave and I would go and get a nurse and have them go in 5 minutes later. So they wouldn't have physical therapy, they wouldn't get medication or anything. So it's the same level of pain, and we would just check and see how consistent they were. And there were times where I went in with the doctor and they said that they had 0 pain, and then we left. I didn't go in the second time, but I would have a nurse go in. 5 minutes later, they said that the pain was like an 8 out of 10, which is like borderline, like put me to sleep. So that was really interesting. So we probably did that for about 100 patients, and there is a pretty decent significance in just how big of a difference they tell you just on who's asking. Right. And so that was kind of part 1 with it. And then part 2 was after that, I'd go and put the data in and everything. I'd go and I would watch their knee replacement. And then typically the next day, a little background on just the outcomes of knee replacements and everything. So when you get a knee replacement, it's really likely that you're not going to have complications, but whenever you do, it's typically caused by the wound breaking down, which could lead to an infection. Yeah. And so my principal investigator hypothesized that it's really common, like let's say you're playing soccer or something, and like you get like some swelling and some inflammation on your foot, and then you start to ice it, right, to bring down the inflammation. Mm-hmm. Yep. So when people get surgery, there's obviously that level of inflammation. Is that ambulance going to be a problem? No. All right. So when people get surgery, they're in pain, they have inflammation, just things don't feel right, and then the thing that we've always been taught is to put ice on it and make it feel better, essentially. But what we came up with was that are people putting on ice on an area that's trying to heal from trauma? And are those like the cells in that weakened state causing, like, is the ice like restricting its ability to heal and then causing it to break down? So it was really cool. I actually got to go in and I got to go and watch a plastic surgery case where they showed me how to use this fluorescent camera and this green dye. So you would inject the dye and it would like make the blood vessels become fluorescent so you could see the blood flow and everything. And then there was just a fluorescent camera that it looked like a flashlight. You'd hold it over and you'd see the blood like coursing through their veins and everything. Yeah. And then the whiter it is, the more intense it is, the darker it is, the more restricted the blood flow is. So I would go in with the patients that got their knee replacement done. I'd put ice on the front, do like before and after, see how like the intensity changed. Yeah. And then we compared it to putting the ice on the back, and then it was like a clear difference to where when you put the ice on the front just for 5 minutes, it's almost like pitch black. So like the vessels are really constricted, and that's only after 5 minutes. People could be leaving it on there for like an hour.
Yeah, for sure.
But then when you put the ice on the back, that's like still really close to where the site of the surgery is, but it's not on the incision. Right. And then when you leave the ice on for the same amount of time and then you check like and you like visualize the circulation and everything, it's really not that different from the baseline.
Okay. So you'd say like you recommend like when you're out, you do something and you feel sore in that area, you don't put it directly on the soreness, put the ice somewhere away from it. That way it's still able to get the blood flow there rather than just restricting it and to heal faster.
This is more so for kind of the surgical case because we're dealing with like cells that have just recently like been cut open and torn apart, and they're trying to heal like an incision and everything. But it's just kind of something to think about, really, because a lot of people just think like put ice on if it doesn't feel good, but we never really think about kind of that's why you're supposed to alternate. Like, you're supposed to ice for a certain amount of time and then not ice. Because
I think it's, 20 on, 20 off or something like that. 15 on, 15 off.
Something like that. But even more so if it's not, like, some new way to, like, some new protocol for, like, after surgery, you have to ice it this way. It does just kind of open up, like, a conversation as to, like, let's question common things that we're doing to see if it's causing anything.
Yeah, that's what research is... at its best, I think, for sure. Mm-hmm. It's kind of what we're seeing now with a lot of the off topic, but because it's a kind of deal. It's what we see now a lot with the vaping stuff.
Oh yeah, there have been like just the past couple of days. I've been seeing a lot of stuff about people getting hospitalized with like because of like the really low quality cartridges and stuff causing like lung damage.
Well, I saw a headline yesterday from NBC News. Let me see if I can pull it up. That Trump is looking to ban all of them. Really? All e-cigarettes and ban vaping, basically. Which I've never vaped before. I've never, I mean, I know people that have, and I don't, like, hold it against them or anything, but it's pretty... I think the one thing that's, like... I was talking to Katie, and she brought this up. It's like, yeah, that's probably... It's a good thing, I think, if we were to get rid of it. But also, like, if you're going to ban vaping, how are cigarettes still
That's
allowed?
True.
Because vaping's almost like cigarette light in a way. So like how is cigarettes still around? And I mean you could probably go with the whole path that's like the tobacco business is so big and blah blah blah, and like they just force DC to keep them open. But
it kind of brings to question for me kind of the concept of how free are you in the sense of if you are totally aware of all the health consequences of smoking and you still want to go and do it, at what right does the government kind of have to kind of take that away from you, but also with the purpose of trying to keep you safe? And then with vaping, it's kind of the same thing. It's just one of those things that kind of needs more research at the time being, but just kind of it is like a really big subjective thing as to who kind of decides like what's too much or what's too harmful or what is like the government telling you this is just not safe versus you kind of making that decision for yourself.
Right. So I think that's kind of like what you see with alcohol.
Yeah.
Now it's like, because I mean, alcohol isn't necessarily all bad for you. I mean, obviously things in moderation are generally okay. Mm-hmm. But like it's illegal for a certain age, and I believe now in Ohio they just passed it to where it's 21 to vape. I'm pretty sure.
Is it really?
Rather than 18. I think that happened just before we left. But here's what. Yeah, Trump was meeting with the top health officials. This is recording Thursday, releasing Thursday, so yesterday. Quote, we can't allow people to get sick and we can't have our kids be so affected that there's a vaping problem and that they're looking to ban the sale of most flavored e-cigarettes. Which is... I mean, it's complicated because then you can say that this is some of the issues you see now with the fact that marijuana isn't legal in all places, that like there's some strains of it that aren't good and get people sick. But yeah, I just think if this is the one step to get rid of it all, like that's fair. But I don't know, it's tough because then you leave it basically unregulated in business, I guess. Because no matter what, like there's going to be a demand for cigarettes. That's the problem. It's the same thing you see with the demand for lesser extent, obviously, because it's not as debilitating marijuana. Same thing for alcohol when it was illegal in the Prohibition era, and then the same thing for drugs that are so bad, such as cocaine and heroin. You know, people want this stuff, and that's why a lot of times the Mexican drug trade is still open. Because even though it's illegal here, people will still demand it. You know,
if there's a demand, people are gonna supply for it.
Yeah, I feel like addiction too is like way too stigmatized still. Like, I mean, both of us coming from the health field, like, addiction isn't just, you know, just stop it. Like, it's not just you can stop. Like, it's, I mean, I know we learn about it. We have to learn about it. It's truly insane to the level that it literally rewires your brain. It's
crazy how that works. But a big thing with what you were saying about just kind of the vaping versus cigarettes portion of it, a thing that I've been seeing in the news a lot recently is that the FDA is the big thing that they're kind of upset with a lot of the corporations is that they're saying that it's a better alternative compared to smoking cigarettes, which in some cases it could be, but at the same time, with the lack of research that there is to make a claim specifically like that, and then having the hospitalizations as of recently with lung damage and everything, is it too soon to make a claim like that? Even though it's not smoke and it's water vapor, but to objectively say that it's a better alternative?
Yeah, my answer is definitely yes. Because you definitely shouldn't be able to say that because it is too soon. The other thing is, the reason this has gotten so big and everything is because, you know, stuff like that gets spread around, and then it takes a while for medical research to get going. It's part of the reason why it's hard, but to really get the full sample and say conclusively that something is better or worse or terrible for you or not, you know, it takes a while. And a lot of times you get conflicting reports about that. Stuff like, you know, cardiovascular stuff a lot of times. So, but my guess, and this is of course, you know, I'm still undergraduate,
of course.
Just my guess is that it's going to come out that this stuff causes a lot of diseases. It causes cancer, you know, because that's just that is my guess. Because when you are introducing something like that is especially into your lungs, which is a very sensitive area in your body to changes like that. When you introduce something like that into your lungs and you're breathing it fully in. You know, fully in, going through your whole body, all this stuff. It messes with your DNA. It messes with your, genetic makeup, and not in the way that you start to see giant variation, but when you mess with the chromosomes stuff like that, you get cancer.
No, for sure.
And that's what my guess. And I mean, vaping's been around for a long time.
It's not a new thing.
Yeah, but since I've been in high school, which I mean, goodness, now that's 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Since
we've seen it evolve a lot.
Yeah, so my guess is in another 5 years we'll have studies on this, like people are doing, and they'll come out with some conclusions. And there's gonna be a lot of backlash. I mean, you see it right now. There's a ton of backlash. So.
No, yeah, 'cause I kind of have 2 points stemming off of what you were saying with that, like in agreement with what you're saying about kind of we don't know. We can't say it's safe because we don't know. It was the same thing with cigarettes back when everyone was doing that in the mid to early 1900s.
Yeah.
And then just it comes out later, oh yeah, there's tar in your lungs and you have cancer now.
Yep.
And it's just one of those things that you got to give it time to kind of get research and everything going. And then stemming off of that, with the whole THC and CBD things and everything coming out, how do you feel about I believe I read somewhere that it's illegal in a lot of ways to study kind of the effects of drugs and everything.
Yeah.
How do you feel about allowing researchers to be able to study potential like drugs like heroin and cocaine and just kind of different variables of it?
Well, heroin and cocaine. Sorry, I'm getting up, so I want to show you something. Heroin and cocaine is tough because they're federally class 1, completely illegal kind of thing. Like that's tough. Marijuana though is different because in a lot of states marijuana is legal now, like full blown and medically used. So obviously if it's medically used, you should have research stuff like that. But you're talking about CBD. I mean, this is the oil I use in the morning.
Wow.
0% THC. I talked about before, so listeners, if you listen to the last episode, Matt and I just talked about it. But yeah, that's like stuff. And, CBD's been shown, and I can say, I know there's some of the like anecdotal effect, but it's like, I know it's like it reduces anxiety. It helps me be able to organize things in the morning when I'm really stressed out and stuff. And it's really nice. And it's, like I said, no THC. Stuff like that. But to your point, it's hard to do that with certain drugs. Like, that's one of the issues right now, I think, with fentanyl. It's because fentanyl just blew up and it's killing kids. I know you haven't, if you've ever been into Ohio.
No.
Yeah, so I just talked about this with Matt last week. This town next to us, my hometown, has a fentanyl issue. Kids are dying from fentanyl right 5 miles from my house at home, and it's like it's a real thing, and that's what, like I said last week, that's what killed Mac Miller. There's fentanyl in the system.
And then I actually have a friend that I just talked to him 2 days ago. He just got accepted to PA school, and his main form of clinical experience and volunteering and everything was he started off as a lifeguard for 2 years, and then he worked as an EMT for 3 years. And he was saying how during his EMT training and everything, they have a whole chapter and everything related to how to handle different drug-related situations. And they were saying that just you really have to be concerned with what you touch, because just the way such a small amount of fentanyl can get absorbed, like even just through your skin, could cause serious harm to you.
I want to look it up because I've seen it before. It's insanely stronger than heroin.
No, it's like I don't want to get a statistic wrong, but it's a considerable amount.
That's what I'm trying to look up right now. Let's see. Here you go, CDC. 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine.
That's what I was going to say, but I didn't want to get it wrong.
So, possibly 100 times stronger than morphine. That's insane.
Why do you think that the Midwest in particular is having more cases like these compared to other areas?
Yeah, so I haven't been through all the Midwest, but obviously Ohio, where I live, counts as the Midwest. I think, especially along the Rust Belt up there, like Cleveland, cities like Cleveland, Detroit, to the closest cities that I feel connected to. Detroit more than Cleveland. But that they, obviously had giant rise in the 50s and 60s and stuff. And with the production of steel, production of cars, that kind of stuff, like those mechanical type jobs. And I mean, the past couple decades, have not been good to them. Detroit has not been a great manufacturing place for a while, the Motor City. But when the last economic crisis came down, and Chrysler went out of business, GM went nearly belly up, Ford made it through, but we're still struggling. All those places are based in Detroit. Pontiac, obviously, that's where I was born, is Pontiac, Michigan, and that got destroyed. I know Cleveland to a lesser extent, but that the areas, there's been so much investment trying to get these cities back propped up, but it's still not to the best. And it's not, there's a lot of, there's just some straight up, there's some poor places, and it's tough because you can get pushed into that lifestyle early in life, and then you can never get out. It's so addictive. You're drug dealing and stuff like that. It's why we need more investment into these cities. Like, I know Detroit's the butt of most jokes is the poorest city in America, which I don't know if it is, but it's up there. Cleveland is the mistake on the lake. I know, like, especially Florida people will joke about that, but it's like we need to reinvest in these areas because these areas become hotbeds for drugs, and it's terrible.
When an environment when it gains such like a specific identity for being a bad area and just kind of all the things that come with that, for the new generation that grows up there, that becomes a part of their identity, and it becomes hard for anyone to really kind of believe like that they can kind of make it out in a sense or become anything other than what they're seeing on a day-to-day basis. Like that just becomes what life is.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's part of the city's identity, not the drugs per se, but the kind of self-defeating mindset. And of course, you talk to me about any Detroit sports team, and my first instinct is, we suck, we're gonna lose. You know that.
Yeah.
So it becomes part of the culture there, and it's. But then again, we're in the Midwest. We're very proud, as you know, and to some people that know me down here in Florida, I'm very proud to say I'm from Midwest Ohio. Like there's that Midwestern, that's where I came from. But like you said, I give, I have a lot of respect for people, like Dan Gilbert, for instance, has invested a ton of money, the Cavs owner, Quicken Loans owner, CEO, into revitalizing downtown Detroit. And Cleveland has had many different people do that. I don't know their names, but Cleveland certainly has some really nice trendy areas now around it, not necessarily in deep downtown, but all around it, and there's really been a focus in trying to get it back up, and I think that's what we need in these type of cities. And there's other places too that Ohio people would know, but that you wouldn't. Places like Lorain, places like Elyria, these type of cities where this is an issue that we just need real investment, because like you said, it becomes part of the social fabric, and then that just becomes an endless cycle. You can't get out. And some people that do get out, like for instance LeBron, I
was just about to mention
from down south, more from where I'm from, but from the area in Akron, he was sleeping on people's couches in 4th grade and stuff, and now he's the best basketball player ever. I would say other people like I don't know where he's from per se, but Robert Downey Jr. His dad was doing drugs and stuff, and he was hooked on drugs at the age of 10. Yeah. And it plagued him for his early career. Then he came back, and look where he is now.
So I feel like with trying to solve issues like these, I feel like there's the immediate things that you can put into effect, and then the things that you can change for the future. And I feel like with what I've been seeing a lot with LeBron and the Cleveland and Akron type, I don't know too much about the Ohio area, but I know those two areas he's done a lot of investing into, but kind of like with the school that he opened up.
Yeah, in Akron.
Yeah, I feel like with kind of starting that, a lot of his focus is on the youth, and I feel like that's a really good way to kind of give them a better upbringing to then lead to a better future. But what do you think in particular could be done like now to try and just make like any sort of immediate kind of change? Because I don't know. Immediate
change is hard because this is, we've talked about vaping, heroin, fentanyl, and you can even rope in opioids with this too. Like this is such a big issue, and this is what I think a lot of issues that we as a country end up debating and arguing on TV and all this stuff in 2-minute bits is that this is such a complex issue because, like, think about what we just talked about. We haven't even fully broken it down yet because you could have a whole podcast probably dedicated to breaking this down. The history of all these drugs, how they came into use, what they were used for originally, and then you interlock that with the cities that we've been talking about, these Midwestern type of cities where there seem to be a lot of these issues. You can't sit here and just go, all right, let's write a check, fix that. It'll be done tomorrow. Even if you invest now, you're not going to see the fruits of that until later when that next generation comes up. So I don't think it's sad, but a lot of people will take it as sad that there's no immediate fix. This isn't going to get fixed tomorrow or a year from now or whatever, but we need to start getting onto that path today.
And then I had a question for you. So just kind of going with kind of the culture of an area. Yeah. So for a period of my time, my dad lived in Boston, so I would always go up to the Boston area. And when I would go there, you think of Harvard Medical School, Harvard Law School, Massachusetts General Hospital, Boston University, MIT. And a lot of kind of the culture of up there is education and just kind of that higher level learning and everything. And other than LeBron James, the biggest thing I really know about Cleveland is the Cleveland Clinic, and just how prestigious of institution that is. How much from being there, how much do you think that kind of plays a role on people that are interested in medicine in that area and kind of the effect that it has on them?
Yeah, so basically in Cleveland, there's 3 big hospital groups. There's Cleveland Clinic, which is obviously it's the most famous one. University Hospitals.
Yeah.
And then Metro Health. So I've actually shadowed doctors at all 3.
Yeah, so I know you shadowed radiology at Cleveland Clinic.
No, it was Metro Health. That was downtown, yeah.
Okay.
So, in terms of students like that, I mean, there's only a couple. I mean, like you mentioned, the universities also in Boston that are around there. The only real universities downtown Cleveland are Cleveland State and Case Western Reserve University, which is a very prestigious private school that I actually applied to and visited a couple times. So they definitely have connections there. I believe with the Cleveland Clinic and Case, they both do. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But I believe that's the pair. And so there's not necessarily like a big culture there, just because there's not like you said, there's Boston U, MIT, Harvard, right there, all in that area. Like Harvard, I don't know if people realize I went to Boston too. Like I've been there. Harvard and MIT are literally right next to each other.
No, yeah.
Like they're like a street away.
Yeah.
So, and that's not how it works in Cleveland. If there's one thing that I think Cleveland and Detroit both share, and this is why I think Cleveland loves Baker Mayfield so much, is their culture is just grit.
Yeah.
Getting down and dirty, just work your ass off.
And then I relate to that with the Philadelphia background and everything. It's
same kind of deal.
Similar.
Yeah, same kind of deal. A lot of those Mid-Atlantic, Midwest kind of places up in there have the same kind of deal. And it's not necessarily like the, I guess, Iowa sense of it where it's like, no, a lot of farming, that kind of thing. That's not where I'm from. In some parts of Ohio, too. I mean, driving through Southern Ohio, but it's like in the city, it's like, this is grit, this is the grind, this is... And it sounds dumb. It might sound dumb to people that don't understand it, but... Because it's like, oh, get back on the grind. But no, it's a real thing. It is truly, it's still the part of those cities that comes from working in steel yards and manufacturing and all those long days at plants.
Yeah, that's just how life is and how people have grown to know just work and the day-to-day grind as being.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. You want to select our next topic? You told me you had topics you wanted to share. Come on here, I don't think we've hit one yet.
So we're already in the middle of the medical stuff, so I feel like I had like an interesting one.
All right.
Just kind of the progress at which research and innovations have been kind of accelerating over the past couple years. So just kind of like an example, it's a really common question for medical school interviews to kind of just see how up to date you are with like what's going on in the news, just kind of your general investment into like knowing about the field. And one of the things is what's something that you're interested in that you want to see a problem solved for or an innovation made like during your career. And so I didn't want to give a boring answer where I want to see the cure for blah blah blah. I wanted to come up with something really like intricate that I thought was really cool, that something I thought I would never see, right? And so I wanted to pick something related to what I wanted to do, which is orthopedics. And in orthopedics, it's really common for if you get like a bone infection or if you get like a tumor or something, you may have to get an amputation, right?
Correct.
And I never knew how amputations worked until I started to learn about it more. What they do with like your nerves and your blood vessels and everything, they keep it all intact, and then within the stump, it rests at the bottom.
Yeah, I was just say they like tie it off, don't they, at the bottom? Like yeah.
So it's like everything that was there in your leg before, minus like the muscle and the bone and everything, is still there. And then I just kind of, with the way that we're moving forward in terms of technology and computers and everything, it's really crazy how...
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty obvious. But with like the way a computer works with messaging, it's like you could either go left or right, then once you go there, you could either go left or right again, and it's just a constant series of yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and then your neurons work the same way with sending messages through like your nerves and all that, through like your nervous system and everything. And I was talking to a friend that has a master's degree specifically working with computers and everything, and we were talking about the idea of what if you could somehow kind of merge, like you get an amputation and then you have like a mechanical prosthetic that works through a computer, and then you're somehow able to kind of integrate like the nerves that are still there into the prosthetic, so you could like move your ankle, for example, just by thinking about it through that connection of the nerves through the computer. And so I thought that this was just like some crazy like sci-fi thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then I was actually listening to a podcast like maybe like 4 days ago. They described the exact same thing I thought of just randomly when I was just sitting in my room trying to think of something.
Yeah.
And apparently, to a degree, like they've already started doing this.
Yeah, so I wonder, like, I know what you're saying is like the nerves in the leg stay intact, for instance. So I wonder, though, the thing I thought of when you're talking about what you're talking about is that, like, the way I would try to go about it if I were starting a research thing would be like, you have a little chip you put in your head, right? Mm-hmm. Not like deep, but like enough to where it gets your brain signals. Because at the end of the day, your brain signals are just, you take in information or you think about something and your body transmits that as electrical signals. Like you're saying, your axons with your electrical signals. You can tell I've been studying from the MCAT that I know about the nervous system.
Of course.
But my thought was, okay, so you have a little chip in your head, and then what I would think you would do is somehow, I mean, obviously it can't be like Bluetooth, but that chip has some kind of, if you need a wire, I mean, I guess that's an annoying surgery, but like you say, it's basically the same function as a nerve, coming down into whatever limb it is, and like you said, like you can, because you can still think to control something, like you think it's, so I mean, I imagine that getting that set up and you're able to get those IT stuff set up with the proper commands for the attachment, the prosthetic itself. I definitely think that'll happen. I think that's a good one though, because it's like you said, it almost seems like a sci-fi thing, but I think we will see that in our lifetime probably.
Because that's as close as you can really get in like the modern era to kind of being a cyborg.
Yeah.
Like you have a mechanical part of your body that you got implanted in you, and you're able to control it just by thinking and using your brain.
That's what I was saying.
That's the definition of a cyborg.
Yeah. And it would certainly help a lot of people.
No, yeah, because just between like daily tasks, like a big thing I was thinking of is like if you wanted to go and like reach for a water bottle, instead of kind of having to go and manually change like the width and everything of like your hand to like cup it, you could just do it by thinking about it.
Right. Yeah, and that'd be so much easier for a ton of people. I think it's a great idea. And I know there's so many people working on that. But yeah, that's a great answer for an interview too.
Yeah. I
don't know what I would interview without an answer. I think the coolest thing that I see happening now, it's using a principle that's medically related for other things though, so I don't know if it counts. Like,
what do you think?
I've seen a lot of people, or not a lot of people, like a lot of companies that have been starting to use bacteria. Because as you know, we both have already taken micro. Like you can grow bacteria so quickly, just like that. To use bacteria, for instance, to make like food.
Oh wow!
Like the Impossible Burger.
Yeah.
For instance, BurgerFi has it.
Yeah.
It's made by bacteria. It's
really
it's meatless meat.
Huh.
Tastes exactly like beef though, according to people who've tried it. Burger King just came out with it.
That's interesting.
Problem is it costs a couple extra bucks, so I haven't tried it, but like stuff like that, they're trying to use it so they feed on. I've seen so that rather than bacteria feeding on nitrogen, they feed on carbon dioxide or carbon to help the planet.
It's just so cool, just the different like facets at which you can like between like technology and then like the polar opposite, just with microorganisms, just like the different vessels that you kind of have to like, do things is really cool.
Right, and at this day and age, you can have an idea and share it and stuff like that. And I think that's a lot of, what separates great scientists. Is like, this is a good idea. Won't work out. Or like the people are like, I'm going to dedicate this. And a lot of times, those researchers don't end up having a good life. Like if you look into some of the backgrounds of the past, the people you associate the most brilliant people, a lot of times their like personal life was not good, or they were just straight up became outcasts because of their beliefs, like Galileo. And it's just really interesting as a society. A lot of times when true scientific progress is made, our first thing is to reject it. Rather than accept and actually try to see if this is a true idea or not.
It's kind of with what you were saying about Galileo. It really interests me how the more that you go through education and the more that you learn and the more that you build yourself, the less connected you kind of become with other people
Yeah.
that haven't gone through the same experience.
Yeah, you get more specific, and then all of a sudden you lose sight of almost all the generality of the world.
Yeah, because even just within the medical field, if you can all learn the same things in medical school, but by the time you're done with your residency and your fellowship and everything, you could be focused on total polar opposite things and just not be able to interact with each other and kind of have that level of understanding that you once did.
That's why the cross field thing, I think, is really important for a lot of different ways, you know? I mean, you combine, for instance, science and art, and you get CGI graphics for movies. Yeah. And I mean, but Disney just made a movie of lions without using any real lions.
Yeah.
And made it real 3D, not 3D, but real live action. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Or you combine, I don't know, history and, I don't know, something else. And you get understanding of the world and stuff like that, of what mistakes not to do that happened in the past. Stuff like that. I think it's really important that. So I try, even though, like you said, you can go down rabbit holes in medical school and get something super specific and probably make a good living and do all that stuff. I really like reading, I read some medical stuff outside of class. But I really like reading a lot of other general things.
Me too.
Just because, I like staying up to date in the world. I like being a well-rounded person to be able to go out and, obviously I kind of need to be to have this show.
No, yeah.
But to go out and really talk to people and get a good feel for, how everything's going in life.
I really like how you use kind of the perspective with your history minor and everything. I can tell that you use a lot of that within the show with kind of the references and stuff you make.
Yeah, I know. Mate came on to talk about. We ended up talking a lot about Hungary's history, but no, it's people take history, and it's fine if you're not interested in history, but people take history and whatever they just blow by it, and then it's you don't learn things because we have not evolved per se in the biological sense, but socially, culturally, and just understanding. For instance, George Washington, I believe I talked about this. I might have on a previous episode, but I'm going to bring it up again because I think it's such a good example of this. George Washington, right? Not super long ago, maybe 200 years, 250, 30 years, I don't know. Whatever, first president of the U.S., everyone should know who that is. People, how he died, right? Because he died about to be possibly reelected again. And he died because of an illness, right? That's false. The illness was a common cold or something like that. Do you know why he died?
How come?
Because the doctor went up to him and was like, Mr. President Washington, we have to bloodlet you. Which, for people that don't know, it was a pretty archaic view of medicine in which you fix diseases by bleeding. You cause bleeding.
Yeah.
So he did that repeatedly for days and days that George Washington lost so much blood that the pathogen then had such a diluted amount of blood in the body that it took over and killed him.
Wow.
It wasn't like it was some staph resistant something resistant antibiotic thing. No, it was just a regular common cold. And the doctor let out so much blood that it killed him. So it's if you don't have to study that particularly because you go in school and obviously you know.
Yeah.
But stuff like that. For instance, I'll give you another one here. Just to reiterate my point. In what year was it? 1813, 14, 12. Napoleon, right? Napoleon's France. Probably one of the largest empires ever seen since the ancient time, right?
Yeah.
He literally conquered, this dude, for people that don't know, that don't remember, literally conquered, you can look at the map back here, from Portugal to Russia. All of it. So there was one more country that he did not conquer, and it was Britain, because Britain's on an island.
Yeah.
So, and Russia started to trade with Britain, because Russia is massive. But they were under Napoleon's rule. So Napoleon was like, I need to teach these Russians a lesson. So Napoleon, I don't believe he left during the winter, but Napoleon left too close to winter. And then he was defeated, and that was the start of his downfall. Obviously, he came back, but the lesson there was do not invade Russia, not even close to the winter, not in the winter, just close to the winter. You can't do it, because if you get delayed, you are screwed.
Yeah.
Let's, let me just make sure I get my math right. Let's fast forward 130 years. 1943. 44, 43. Adolf Hitler. Once again, had an insane army, destroyed, France did everything but capture Britain and already had an agreement with Russia so that they would not attack each other.
Mm-hmm.
America is just getting in. We're dealing with the Japanese. What does Adolf Hitler do? Invades Russia too close to winter. Gets crushed at Stalingrad.
Yeah.
Russia mows him over in the east. If you just picked up a book.
Just learning from the past, and it's crazy because you can learn so much through the mistakes that other people make.
Mm-hmm. And the mistakes you make, personally.
Oh, no, yeah.
Because I think people that are really stuck in life, and obviously there's different situations for all kinds of people, but for people that, seem like they're stuck, take a good look at yourself. Just be like, when I make a mistake, do I, one, own it? You have to own the mistake. And two, do you try to, say, okay, what did I do wrong? Do you really analyze it?
Try and learn from it.
Exactly. Because, life is not gonna... If you ever think you're stuck and you're like, it'll get better one day. I mean, it might. But if you're not putting any conscious effort to that, it's not just gonna be a whoop.
Yeah.
There. It's... I know I'm preaching right now, or advising, but it's just... And I struggle with it too. Sometimes, I'll do something or say something and be like, I didn't do anything wrong. And the other person, whatever, is like, no, you kind of messed up. I'm upset. And that's the other thing, is making sure you're able to look at other people and understand that everything that is okay in your life per se, or that was okay for you back home, or is okay for you at school when you go back home, may not be the same for other people. And I think that's an important thing to hear, because we're all just like, a lot of times people are just like, my attitude's the right way. If you get offended, that's your problem. Well, not quite. And sometimes,
yeah.
I mean, you can, obviously. I think with a lot of stuff, people can get over offended, i.e. a lot of stuff with the Dave Chapelle thing that came out.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. I'm done preaching now.
How do you feel about the criticism from Dave Chappelle's new...
Did you watch it?
Yes.
It was hilarious.
I thought it was really funny.
It was hilarious. So did you hear what happened, though?
What did?
I heard about this on Joe Rogan's podcast I listened to.
Mm-hmm.
He said that on Rotten Tomatoes, it opened at like a 30% or something like that, because they had 5 progressive people review it.
Really?
That's fine. Mm-hmm. Comedy, I personally believe, is a place... I do think you go too far.
You can.
Certainly, like, day-to-day conversation, you go too far. But in terms of comedy, I really feel like, comedy... They become comedians because they push the boundary. And if you can't let a comedian, make fun of other things, And, of course, Dave Chapelle, for people that don't know, is African-American. Which, I mean, I don't know if... It's bad to say that helps, but, it's different if a white guy was up there saying these things. For sure.
I feel like that does help.
And the other thing I think about Dave is that people call him an equal opportunity comedian, because he goes after everybody,
he
literally
does.
everybody. And I think the other thing is that, so back to the thing, so 30% from the 5 progressive views. Once they opened up the voting for Rotten Tomatoes to the public, went up to 99% approval. Yeah. So I thought it was really funny.
Because 2 things that really kind of confused me about it are, if there was anyone that were to go and kind of make the jokes that people are having criticisms with him for, he'd be the guy to go and do it, because he really does go and kind of gives everyone a fair share of their own bit of jokes and everything. And then in addition to that, that's just his style of comedy. I mean, it's not like someone that is totally just not controversial, and then out of nowhere they have these controversial things. It's this is exactly what I was expecting.
Yeah, that's what he's been doing for years.
Yeah.
And also they're jokes.
Exactly.
He doesn't believe this. And I mean, if we start, I think, when I walk, like you said, when I go to a comedy show, or when I'm going and watching it on Netflix, I want it to be a little edgy. I want it to be that's why I'm watching it, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in daily life that you just you can't really comment or articulate on, and then you go and see that, and it's okay, the world is as messed up as it seems sometimes. So, and
then that one restaurant in Chicago where you go into and the workers are rude to you intentionally and they insult you, and that's a thing that people go to for the experience.
Yeah.
So I mean, how different is that from going to a controversial comedy show when you live in a world where kind of controversy and everything is super just kind of frowned upon, and shut away and it gets canceled with like kind of the cancel culture.
Cancel culture. Oh God.
It's kind of, with all of that. Isn't that kind of the point of going to a Dave Chapelle show?
I think so.
To kind of experience like what you aren't experiencing on a day-to-day basis?
I agree 100%. Completely agree. I don't have anything to add. I think you summed it up perfectly.
Yeah. I don't know what else to add to that.
Yeah, so, all right, well, I think we're right at the end here.
Sounds good
great.
to me.
Everyone listen to go Dave Chappelle's thing.
Yeah.
Don't get mad. It's great. That was a great conversation. Thank you. We'll do another one soon.
Thank you for having me on the Assist podcast with Zach Schwartz.
Of course, you already know. All right. Thank you for listening to the Assist podcast. If you like the show, go drop a 5-star rating. That really helps us keep the show going. If you want to stay updated with all of the podcast episodes, hit the subscribe button and also go follow our Twitter, which is @assist_podcast, and our Instagram, which is now the Assist Podcast. And you can write any emails, any suggestions you have to theassistpod@yahoo.com, and we'll see you next week.